Hello, good morning and welcome back. We're standing on what might seem like an ordinary stretch of Devon coastline, but if you'd been here on the 24th of November 1804, you'd have looked out to sea and witnessed an extraordinary sight. The Royal Navy's Channel Fleet, dozens of warships sheltering from an enormous storm here in Torbay. Among them was the HMS Venerable, a powerful 74-gun third-rate ship of the line that had once fought heroically in the Battle of Camperdown. But on that day, tragedy struck. As she was raising anchor in an effort to find more sheltered waters, a loud scream was heard, shortly followed by the cry of the crew, "Man overboard!" In the chaos of the rescue attempt, the storm intensified and Venerable was driven ashore. She was wrecked right here on these rocks, a dramatic end to a ship that had seen glory in battle just a few years before. Many lives were saved, but the ship was lost and her remains scattered beneath the waves. In this video, I'll be diving the wreck site of the HMS Venerable to rediscover what lies beneath the surface: timber, cannons, perhaps even artefacts buried in the sand for over 200 years. What's left of this once mighty ship? Join me as we explore the story of HMS Venerable and uncover what history is left beneath the waters here at Torbay. Let's go. We're now just making our descent down to the area where the HMS Venerable was wrecked. The wreck was badly broken up by the force of the waves. There was an account from the captain stating that as he sailed away on a lifeboat, he looked back to see his ship being smashed into thousands of pieces. Over time, much of this has been buried under sand and silt. What we're doing now is carefully scanning the seabed for signs of surviving artefacts. Anything we uncover would have lain here undisturbed for over 220 years. So we've got our first hit for this expedition, which turned out to be this little concretion. For those of you that don't know, concretion is a naturally forming material that builds up around ferrous metals that are exposed to the marine environment over decades. There'll be something hidden inside this, which will break open later to see what it is. Concretions also fuse themselves to whatever's around them, like shells or stones, or like this one that I uncovered that was fused to solid rock. I think I'm going to have to leave this one behind. After this, I decided to venture my way out into deeper waters where the rocky outcrops and sandy gullies give way to a flat sandy bottom. After a considerable amount of time cruising around this desolate area, I eventually came across this piece of wreckage sticking out from the seabed. This was an absolutely incredible find. And after having a little prod around with my metal detector, I realised there was a lot more of this beneath the sand. After checking what air I had remaining, I decided to make my way back in to the rocky outcrops and the gullies to hopefully improve my chances of finding some more interesting artefacts. And it wasn't long before I had another hit on the metal detector. Now this thing was really stubborn to get out. But as you're about to see, when I pull this thing out, I get really excited, because as soon as I looked at it, I knew exactly what it was. This is part of the copper sheeting that was fitted around the hull of the HMS Venerable. And back in the day, this was a brand new technology, and I believe this copper sheeting was fitted on the Venerable in 1804 in Portsmouth, literally not long before that fateful day when she sunk. I think the most tragic part of this entire event was the only lives that were lost was that of the brave men who jumped in the first lifeboat to rescue the man that went overboard. In the hurry to lower him down, the boat instantly capsized in the bad weather and they unfortunately drowned. The only upside was they lowered down a second lifeboat which managed to rescue the man that originally fell overboard. And what I'm doing now is just dumping out my extra buoyancy, because when we're cruising around we like to be at a neutral buoyancy so you don't float or you don't sink, but this is not very good for digging up artefacts, because it's kind of like a little bit like being in space in zero gravity. You have a little push and you just sort of wobble all over the place and drift away, so dumping out that extra buoyancy really helps anchor you to the bottom so you can dig these things up. When I start digging, I do a lot of it by feel, because once I start wafting the sediment, from my point of view, my visibility goes to nearly zero. And I felt something very strange, and as I picked it up, this thing absolutely baffled me. It's not metal, but it almost looked like some sort of ancient seed pod, and this thing was buried very deep down. And we'll have a much closer look at this really interesting find later on as well. Still buzzing from finding that copper sheeting, I came across this amazing underwater cave that was absolutely full of juvenile pouting. I couldn't resist having a little look inside with the metal detector. Unfortunately, I didn't have any signals, but what I did come across was this pipefish, a member of the same family as the seahorse, and this little guy was incredible. Right at the end of this cave there was a little gap that looked just about big enough for me to squeeze out of, but I'm a solo diver, and although my ADHD was craving for me to try and squeeze through this gap, I really didn't fancy getting stuck. I'm trained on how to get out of situations where you do become wedged, but it's definitely something I'd rather avoid if possible, so I decided it's better to back out the way I came. I had a little signal down here in this area, and upon investigation this thing was quite close to the surface, and pulling it out it seemed like a bit of concretion but with a really interesting shape, so I'm super excited to get this thing home and take a closer look at it. It had come to that point in the dive where my air was really low and it was time to get out, but I just had one final hit, and upon investigating it with my hands I could tell it was concretion that was fused into some rocks, and I decided this thing is coming with me, so it's time to deploy my trusty dive knife. On yanking and pulling and levering on this thing, all of a sudden the unthinkable happened. Snap! No, I've broken my dive knife. This just made me more determined, so I grabbed this thing and dug my knees into the seabed and pulled with everything that I had. All of a sudden it came free. Haha, gotcha! And just remember guys, history isn't just found in books and museums, it's out here too, hidden above and beneath the waves, and for those of us willing to search, it's still here just waiting for us to discover its story. Right guys, I'm back in my workshop. I've got all the items that we found laid out on the bench behind me. I had such a good time looking around this location. It's such a historic place with still, after 220 plus years, so many interesting things to see. And I mean, I could probably spend 100 plus dives there, metal detecting and still finding interesting things. But one thing I really messed up on was snapping my trusty dive knife. I've had this thing for years. It's not particularly expensive, but it's just something I've become really attached to and almost kind of like a good luck charm. So I'm particularly gutted about that, even though it's probably my own fault for kind of trying to dig and lever things out of it, but there we go. Anyway, let's not mess around, let's have a look at what we found. Right guys, well this is everything that we found. I think I'll go to this strange object first, which I pulled this thing out from deep under the seabed, and when I did it was jet black, but since it's been out of the water it's turned this creamy white colour. And this thing, I originally thought it was some sort of a seed pod, but now I'm starting to think maybe it's a bone of some description. And I've done so much research trying to figure out what this thing is, and all that keeps coming back is part of a dodo skeleton, which that's really cool. How true it is I'm not sure, but I guess it could be feasible. Maybe this was some sort of relic on the ship or some sort of souvenir that's ended up on the seabed, but who knows. As always guys, if you're at home watching this and you think I know what that is, please let me know in the comment section below. It's amazing how many times my videos, the identity of things has actually been discovered for you guys. Let me know in the comment section, and also let me know if there's anything that you enjoyed about this video or even anything you didn't like that you think could be done better. I'd love to hear you guys' feedback. Next we've got these three concretions that we found. This first small one, this larger one that was right at the end of the dive where I actually snapped my knife trying to get it out, and then this strange shaped one which we're going to break open right at the end to see what's inside. But what I was most excited about was this copper sheeting that I found from the hull of the Venerable. And like I said in the video, this was fitted to the ship in 1804 in Portsmouth, not long before she sank. And what this did, it was like a new technology in the day, is they'd wrapped the hull below the waterline in this copper because it repels any seaweed and makes the ships a lot faster. Because you can imagine it doesn't take long. It's called fouling. When seaweed and gunk and goo builds up on the bottom of these ships, and it just slows them down so much. It's kind of like sailing on a sponge. So with this attached to the bottom, it's smooth and fast, and you can see how well this worked, because even being under the water 220 years, it's come out with absolutely no growth on it whatsoever. and still pretty much looks like it is when it went in. I could imagine maybe even these creases could have happened while it was being wrecked and pulled and torn on the rocks and twisted and folded in on each other. What's really cool about this is I've seen some examples where it's actually got the date stamped on it and like the Royal Navy stamping. I'll throw a picture of that up now of the bits that I found. But what I'm going to do is very gently unwrap this and see if there's any markings inside. If there is, that would be absolutely awesome. But if not, it's still an absolutely brilliant find. Right, well, I unwrapped this as carefully as I possibly could, and the only marking that I could find was a slight one in here, which is sadly quite worn away. But I guess this thing's been down there for a long time, and you can see how much it's deteriorated and been into all these little pieces. But what an amazing thing still to have an actual piece of the HMS Venerable's hull, like in my hands, like absolutely incredible. I guess all that's left, guys, is to quickly break open these concretions and see what's inside. I'm actually going to put some gloves on for breaking open these concretions today, because these things have a really intense, like fishy, metally smell, and once you get it on your hands, it's nearly impossible to get rid of the smell for days. Now the best way I've found to do this is just with my little hammer and just as gently as possible tap away and break away some of this concretion. Well, I've broken these concretions off as best as I possibly can and given them a bit of a clean up, and the first small one that we found is actually incredible. This actually has pieces of original ship's timber inside, and you can even see a hole where original nail has been driven into this. And to find some of the ship's original timber this far along is just an absolutely amazing, rare thing to find. It's been preserved, luckily, inside this concretion. But wow, look at that. This would have actually been part of the hull, or maybe a cannon, a cart, or even some part of the mast, who knows. But wow, like, I'm just so pleased with this. It's definitely such a rare find to have. The second piece that we found actually turned out to be this part of an original chain link, which unfortunately is in very bad condition. I didn't break it out any more than this because it literally is just disintegrating, and I wanted to try and keep it as complete as possible. But again, like, what an absolutely incredible find to find something original from the ship like this. And finally was this strip of metal. Unfortunately, it's kind of nondescript with no real markings on it. There's a bit of a hole here where it was fastened to whatever, but nonetheless still part of the original ship, so a cool find. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. I had such a good time creating this video. It really felt like an epic quest, from gathering all the information and doing the research to then taking out on the field and finding these artifacts to bring back to show you in greater detail. And I really hope you guys enjoyed it too. If you did, please don't forget to hit that like button and consider subscribing to our channel. It takes quite a lot of effort to put these videos together, so it really is just a great way of letting me know that you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out. And also, so you don't miss out on any future videos we're going to have coming, maybe check out some of our other content that should be popping up on the screen now, like how I found this part of an old Armada shipwreck on a remote beach in South Devon. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers!